Hey everybody, it's Tatiana with Back to Facts. I know what you're thinking. How could the Mueller report fail to recommend charges against Donald Trump and his family? And I know you're probably thinking that you know the answer, that a sitting president cannot be indicted, and that the only thing protecting him from being charged and tried and convicted is that he is president. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. First of all, let's talk about collusion, which is not a legal term. Robert Mueller said there was no evidence of collusion on the part of the Trump campaign with Russian officials or Russian nationals to affect the 2016 presidential election. How do we know that? Robert Mueller pretty thoroughly goes through every instance. One of the more high-profile ones was where Trump said, "Russia, if you're listening." It wasn't even referring to the emails that actually got hacked. It was referring to Hillary Clinton's private server, which was operating years ago. The server only came to light in 2015. Another event was obviously the Trump Tower meeting. Now, the Trump Tower meeting is really controversial, especially now since the whole topic has been reopened by George Stephanopolous, who was asking about Don Jr., who testified behind closed doors once again. And so Stephanopolous was asking Donald Trump, would you accept information from a foreign government or would you call the FBI? And Trump says, well, I would do both. You got to hear what it is before you can decide if it's important enough to call the FBI, essentially. I don't think he said it in those terms, which is the problem with Trump, is that he can easily be misinterpreted at times. So let's talk about the Trump Tower meeting. Basically, Don Jr. got an email from Rob Goldstone, who had been a promoter who had worked with the Trumps when they did the Miss Universe pageant, I believe, in Moscow. They had an entertainer called Emin Agalarov singing at that event, and they became friends with, the Trump children. Agalarov asked Rob Goldstone to get in touch with Don Jr., saying that there was an attorney who had ties to the Russian government who had some information on Hillary Clinton and would like to set up a meeting. We all know that Trump Jr. said, if what you say is true, I love it, which makes a lot of Twitter critics think that they know that Trump and his children were committing treason because you should immediately call the FBI. Robert Mueller did not see the Trump Tower meeting as nefarious or as evidence of collusion for a couple reasons. One, he did not find any intent to conspire. Another reason that he didn't charge anyone is that no information was exchanged, and that is the case for some of the other lower profile meetings that were attempted to be set up by either agents of Russia or we're not sure. The intelligence community did acknowledge that they sent human assets to check in with the Trump campaign. We also suspect that some of the other offers that were being made to members of the campaign were actually to perhaps entrap members of the campaign. And that is all just coming out now, although I've been hearing about it for quite a while. We have Konstantin Kilimnik, a pro-Russian Ukrainian official who was buddies with Paul Manafort, and he said a few things to try to get in with the Trump campaign, saying, I can connect you to the top. The Trump campaign never accepted his help, but Paul Manafort, who had done work in Ukraine and for Ukraine here and didn't register as a foreign agent, which they got him on. And Paul Manafort sent internal polling data about the election to Konstantin Kilimnik. Now it's come out that Kilimnik was a known U.S. intelligence asset for many years, as well as Felix Sater. Now, we knew Felix Sater was an FBI informant simply because he was involved in the Russian mob in New York. We also know that he helped Donald Trump with a loan. However, that was after he had formed his own legitimate company in New York City. Sater was involved in the talks with Michael Cohen about Trump Tower Moscow. A lot of people who think that Trump is guilty as hell think that the Trump Tower Moscow thing was a big thing. Obviously, Robert Mueller did not think the Trump Tower Moscow thing was a big thing. No property was bought, no money was exchanged, merely a letter of intent was signed. Negotiations apparently went well into the summer of 2016. Even though Michael Cohen, who was really spearheading the project, he said initially to investigators that talks about Trump Tower Moscow were ended in January. And then it came out that it was a little later when Donald Trump said, I have no dealings in Russia. I do no business in Russia. He was correct. But people thought he was lying because of this Trump Tower Moscow idea. Well, this was an idea. Oh, and I believe Michael Cohen asked him something about it, like, why didn't you mention Trump Tower Moscow when you said you have zero business in Russia? And he said, because it wasn't business. We hadn't signed a deal. So that's my take on Volume 1 in general. I just wanted to address the idea that there really wasn't any conspiracy to begin with. And if you doubt me, you can read a number of very, very good journalists who have been writing about this in addition to myself. One of them is Matt Taibbi. He's a writer for Rolling Stone. He's appeared on Real Time with Bill Maher many, many times. He even called Donald Trump's presidency a clown show. But he has been publishing articles on his website showing that the whole Russia idea was manufactured. And it's coming out now. The evidence is there. So since we don't have conspiracy, that has to affect at least a little bit how we look at Volume 2, which is on obstruction of justice, alleged obstruction of justice. So as much as everybody wanted to remove Trump so they could feel better and be done with this national nightmare, there really was no basis for removing him through the Mueller report. Mueller investigation, it turns out, was done pretty well, although I'd say they actually did less thorough of a job than the Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, both of whom found no evidence of collusion. But apparently Mueller didn't even interview Natalia Veselnitskaya when the Senate committee did. I think that telling somebody, prove to me you're not an evil person, it's not the America I know, and it's not a crime to be brash and brusque. Somebody from the wrestling world is not going to mince words. What I'm trying to do is just get everybody to understand the other side is not a monster. Unfortunately, the left is thinking that Trump supporters should basically go in a wood chipper, and I actually heard that. They think you should divorce them, shun them, ostracize them. Just the very fact that that's inaccurate, saying some Trump supporters are all monsters, is enough for me to do what I do. Keep calm and share complete facts. Thanks for listening.